Chapter 10, The Introduction to the Devout Life. During the years 1608 to 1609, Francis was busy with his diocese, but he found time to edit and publish a book. During those years he lived in the Lambert House, just across the narrow street from his cathedral in Annecy. Bishop Lambert had lived here earlier, as the stained glass window in the stairwell points out. De Sales lived here until 1610, during the time he wrote and edited his book. The Introduction to the Devout Life was written for people who themselves lived in the midst of a busy life, but who wanted to develop and nourish a relationship with the Lord in the midst of it. Francis could appreciate what it meant to be busy. He was dealing with his diocese while he wrote. André Ravier called him a writer without time to catch his breath. The book developed from his spiritual direction of Louise de Châtel, wife of Claude Vidôme de Chaumont, Seigneur de Chamoisy, Marcla, and Villy. Louise was 23 or 24 at the time. She was originally from Normandy. Before her marriage, she had lived at Paris as a maid of honor to Catherine of Cleves, Dowager Duchess of Guise. She knew the splendors of the Louvre and life at the court of the king. She and her husband now lived in Annecy. A plaque marks the entryway to their house, the residence of the nobles of Déray, inhabited in the 17th century by Claude de Vidôme, Lord of Chamoisy, and his wife, Louise du Châtel, the Philothea of St. Francis de Sales. She met Francis de Sales as her first contact with Savoyard society because the de Sales and the Chamoisis were cousins. Her husband was frequently absent, as he was a gentleman to the Duke of Nemours, whose fortress dominated Annecy. One of its towers is pictured in this panel of a stained glass window from the Basilica in Annecy. During Lent 1609, Madame de Chamoisy placed herself resolutely under Francis' spiritual direction. Later she had to leave Annecy for Chambéry to undertake a difficult lawsuit before the Sovereign Senate. The Dukes of Savoy had resided at Chambéry. Earlier, in 1606, Francis had given a series of Lenten sermons in Chambéry in this chapel. As Louise had moved about frequently, sometimes to her estate in Marcla, in the Chablais shown here, Francis would write to her, continuing his direction by letters. Possibly she sat at this window to read Francis' letters. A letter from Madame de Chamoisy to Francis is preserved in the museum of the Château of Trohan. Francis maintained a correspondence with his friends. He considered those he directed his friends. Francis agreed that his written instructions could be of help to others. He decided to publish them. They were published in Lyon, at the corner of Rue Mercière and Forandière. Lyons had become an important center of book publishing. The Introduction to the Devout Life was published by the Rigaud Press. It became a bestseller in Francis' lifetime. Even Louis XIV had a copy. His copy is on display at the Château of Trohan, near Sales. Louis XIV was the grandson of Henry IV who had so much esteem for Francis. The book went through 2 hastily assembled editions until Francis got the chance to publish the definitive 3rd edition in 1619. This edition is generally published today. Francis had written his first book. It would become a bestseller. Like most of his accomplishments, it was done to meet a need indicated by his state in life. End of video 5. Produced by DeSales University. Directed and narrated by A. Robert McEwen.